Fellas, in the second video of the day, we got to talk about LaMelo Ball. He is going to be returning from injury. I honestly thought that they had already declared him out for the season, if I'm completely honest. That is not the case. He will be returning within about a week to a week and a half, which is huge news, not only for him individually, as it relates to a potential push for Rookie of the Year, but of course for the Hornets as well. A Hornets team that was, a top 5 seed in the East not too long ago. They slipped down the standings a little bit. We're going to talk about what this means for him, for the team, all that good stuff in the second video of the day. But really quickly, before we get started, if you enjoy content like this, then consider subscribing. I upload twice a day, every single day in this channel, so it's a great place for the most consistent NBA content on YouTube. If you're new here, by the way, what's up? My name is Tucker. You can also leave a like rating on the videos as well, and you can check me out at various socials and a Linktree link down in the description below. With those things said, let's talk about LaMelo. So, as I said, the news at the moment is that he'll be back within the next 7 to 10 days. He hurt his wrist. They declared him out for like at least a month. I honestly just kind of assumed that was it. You know what I mean? And we'll talk a little bit later about should they be bringing him back, some of the specifics around that. But more importantly, does this put him now in the first place spot for the Rookie of the Year? Because it's pretty much going to be him or Anthony Edwards at this point. By the time he got hurt, Anthony Edwards became kind of the front runner. And personally, I would much rather it be LaMelo for a variety of different reasons. 1, I think he's having a better season. 2, I think he's the better player. 3, it's not that Anthony Edwards isn't deserving. It just would feel weird to give the Rookie of the Year to a guy on an awful team, a team that has an awful record and is shooting less than 40% from the field, and be like, hey, this is the best rookie out of this class. It would feel a little bit odd to me. Now, granted, LaMelo has bad games, you know what I mean? And his shooting percentage isn't fantastic. And the Hornets are in an easier conference, and that certainly helps in terms of the team's overall record. But I just feel like, you shouldn't reward or account for team success as much in the Rookie of the Year as you do for something like the MVP, of course. But it still needs to be a bit of a consideration. And the fact that Edwards' team is as bad as they are from a record standpoint, and he's shooting as poorly as he is, I feel like has to count for something. And so if LaMelo comes back and he picks up where he left off, which is no guarantee, by the way, he should, in my opinion, end up winning the Rookie of the Year. Now, as it relates to the team, this is obviously great news for the Hornets. A Hornets team that really just got hit badly by the injury stuff over the last handful of weeks. I mean, it was LaMelo out, and then Gordon Hayward was out and is still out. They started sliding down the standings a bit, and they lost 4 in a row before taking out the Blazers in their most recent game to kind of turn things around and right the ship a little bit. And they're trying to make a playoff push. Now, granted, they're 4.5 games up on the 10th seed right now. All they have to do is not fall out of the 10th seed, and they'll at least be in the play-in game. But you'd like to, be the 8th seed, be the 7th seed, and potentially have the opportunity, if you win your play-in games, to obviously, play somebody in the first round and get some postseason success. And just think about the variety of different teams in the East that have been trying to push for the playoffs, have been trying to legitimize their roster by making a postseason appearance. A team like Chicago comes to mind over the last couple of seasons, right? Think about how much they've struggled to do that and how big of a deal it would be for Charlotte to make the postseason this year. At the beginning of last year, I legitimately thought Charlotte had the worst roster in the entire league. And they surprised a lot of people. They played much better than a lot of people thought that they would. Someone like Devontae Graham really, developed into a nice young player for them. The coaching staff showed themselves to be a really good staff as well, and it worked out well for them. And I don't think that that's something that can be undervalued here, is the possibility of them making the postseason. And that's something I definitely think that they should be pushing for, obviously. And it's good that that LaMelo and hopefully Hayward as well will be coming back and being healthy. The question, though, at this point, is even with those things said, even with it said about, okay, he could win Rookie of the Year, which for the Hornets is not a small thing, by the way, to get some buzz around you, buzz, no pun intended, with a potential Rookie of the Year winner, but also, the benefits of making the postseason stuff, that should be weighed against, should we be bringing LaMelo back already? You could make the case that given the constraints of this season, given some of the injury stuff that we've seen over the last handful of weeks, guys starting to break down a little bit, given the fact that LaMelo is so young, it's not like they're fighting for the 3rd seed, like they're going to get knocked out in the first round no matter what they do. You could make the case that A, they should be slow playing this a little bit more and not bring LaMelo back until a week before the playoffs, or B, they shouldn't bring him back at all. I mean, he's a rookie after all. It's not like they're going to win their first round series with or without LaMelo. Should they even be bringing him back at all? Now, the counter to that, and where I would stand on this, is 1, he has to come back at some point, right? So as long as you and your doctors feel good about this guy returning at this point, then he might as well come back. And then the other point to that would be, it certainly would be helpful, in my opinion, for any rookie, but especially a guy like LaMelo, to understand what it feels like to play in the postseason, understand what it feels like for these top tier teams, to really be pushing for something, to kind of feel what that feels like. Let's not forget that as impressive as LaMelo has been as a rookie, his professional basketball experience coming into the league was certainly an interesting one. And not that this guy doesn't know what it feels like to play in like big time games, because a lot of their high school games were some of the most anticipated games in the country at the time that him and his brothers were in high school. But it would just be nice for him to kind of feel what that level of pressure is like. And I think amongst pretty much any rookie in this class, you could argue that playing in the playoffs would be the most valuable for LaMelo over anybody else. So as long as they're comfortable and as long as they're cautious about his minutes and him not getting re-injured, I would feel completely fine with him coming back this year and not having to push it back towards next year. If you want to make the case against that, that'd be fine. Again, given kind of some of the injury circumstances of this season, I would not blame you for that at all. But let's assume he comes back and he looks good to make postseason, everything's good. Let's talk about the future of this Hornets roster. They have proven themselves to be a really, nice little organization here. I think the coaching staff is solid. They've cemented themselves as a good staff. Again, when it comes to player development of guys like Miles Bridges, PJ Washington, Devontae Graham, Terry Rozier, and of course, LaMelo in his first season. Of course, I've criticized a bit at times how cautious they were with putting him into the lineup, but ultimately it appears as though that was the right decision. It's kind of allowed him to grow into a role rather than just be given one, which certainly makes a lot of sense. And then from a front office perspective, a lot of people clowned the Hayward signing, right? They're like, why are you giving him this much money? This is crazy. He's been a borderline all-star. He's been awesome. And that was always kind of the case with Hayward, is like the contract wasn't necessarily awful, assuming he was healthy. And with the exception of this most recent injury, he has been healthy. And when he's been healthy, he's been very, very good, and probably just needed a change of scenery out of Boston. So from a front office perspective, again, if you look at some of the guys they've drafted on this roster, Devontae Graham, they bring in Terry Rozier in free agency, Bridges, Washington, you could certainly make the case that this is a team that is in the right direction, that you should feel comfortable and confident in moving forward, building a solid team. And all of those things bode well. And I think there's a lot of teams around the league that would look at what Charlotte has going on. A legit future all-star type guy in LaMelo, in my opinion. A handful of other nice, interesting young players. A borderline all-star in Gordon Hayward, the flexibility to possibly do some things moving forward with all of their own picks and some cap space stuff that we could talk about in a different video when we go to kind of like the What's Next series, which will be coming up here in the next couple of weeks. In a competent front office and coaching staff that all appear to be on the same page. When you combine all of those things, I think there are a lot of teams, specifically in smaller markets, that would really like to be in the situation that Charlotte is in right now. And so ultimately, as it relates to LaMelo coming back and the Charlotte situation as a whole, they're in a really, really good spot. And I'm excited. I for those of you that don't know, I'm from North Carolina, but I'm a Nets fan, which we can talk about at a different point. The Hornets never really seemed, when I was growing up and got into basketball, they never seemed like the cool thing to get into. Then it was the Bobcats, and then it was just weird and awkward, right? I think it's possible, right, given kind of the cultural significance that LaMelo has, that this could be a really, really cool and up-and-coming team over the next couple of seasons, because people are going to want to see LaMelo succeed. He's a polarizing player in all the right ways, right? And he's exciting to watch. He's fun to watch. And this could be the beginning of Charlotte becoming a really fun and significant franchise within the league, with LaMelo potentially pushing for the Rookie of the Year, then making the playoffs in his first season, and whatever they do moving forward. We could look back on this season in a couple years and think, man, this is kind of where Charlotte started to become a thing. You know what I mean? The Hornets started to become a thing, and they can bring out the throwback uniforms and kind of be a culturally significant NBA team, which they haven't been in a really, really long time, if ever. And it's kind of crazy for one guy in LaMelo to have that kind of impact. If this roster had like James Wiseman on it right now, he'd be interesting, right? And he would certainly be a nice fit with this group, but it's just different to have someone like LaMelo that, again, is culturally significant, that people want to play with, that is such a great playmaker, that has an elite skill with that passing and has so much room to grow still as a scorer, as a shooter, and as a defender. And assuming he can grow into that, raises the ceiling of a particular team to such a high level, to the point where, I mean, that's kind of the reason why I thought he should have been the first pick in the first place. Ultimately, maybe there's a rookie that overtakes him in the long term, but LaMelo's been really good. I think he should win Rookie of the Year. I think as long as he's fully healthy, it's the correct decision to bring him back, and I'm excited to see what he does the rest of the year, what the Hornets do the rest of the year, as well as moving forward in the future. I think the Hornets, as an interesting, relevant NBA team, are here to stay. as long as, LaMelo's there and he's healthy and he continues to get better. That's just kind of where I'm at with them. But that is going to be the end of the second video of the day, and I thank you guys very much for watching. Once again, my name is Tucker. If you missed any of my previous videos, then be sure to check out the boxes on screen. If you missed the video, earlier today, I talked about Steph. I talked about the crazy stretch that he is on right now, so be sure to check that out if you missed that, again, in the first video of the day. With all those things said, hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your Tuesday, and I will see you all next time.